Hey folks, Machinery Pete here. I'm in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and I'm with Greg Davenport. Greg, your title with Hutson Inc. here, you are?
I'm a customer account manager. I sell farm equipment and help manage the account. I try to pull all of the different departments together and work with the farmer.
And how long you been in the farming equipment biz, Greg?
I started in 1985. I started in sales in April of '87, so my 30-year anniversary is coming up in a few months.
30 years.
I sold red equipment until 2001, and then I came and started selling John Deere equipment in 2001 with Raider Implement.
Sure.
Then Raider Implement sold to Hutson Ag. So I work for Hutson today.
Well, Greg, we're down here filming for U.S. Farm Report, and we got visiting last night, and I love these conversations. About 20 minutes in, I can't even remember how it came up, but you told me that you collect something very unusual. Why don't you tell people?
Watch fobs.
So what do you mean watch fob?
It is a small, generally metal piece that years ago, most all farmers, equipment operators, everybody carried a pocket watch. There was no such thing as a wristwatch.
Right.
And so they carried a pocket watch. Well, a working guy didn't want to dig around in his pocket looking for it, so they had fobs, and it was a little, usually a leather strap, and it had a fob hanging on it so he could put the watch in his pocket, the fob was outside, and he could pull it out and look at it. Well, equipment companies and all companies realized, hey, there's a guy walking around with this thing hanging out of his pocket. We might as well give it to him and put our brand on it. So there's, food, clothing, shoes, and machinery.
Okay.
And I collect the machinery fobs. I started collecting international when I sold Case IH equipment.
Sure.
And when I started selling John Deere, I started collecting John Deere also. And it's probably my favorite part of the collection. One, most people don't know what it is.
Right.
So it's interesting to them from the start because it's something they don't know anything about.
What is a watch fob? Yeah. That's you're teaching.
Everybody says, well, what is a watch fob? And,
right.
And you explain it. And there's a lot of people collect it. There's actually a collectors club that collects them. And there's some people, I know a guy that owns 10,000 watch fobs.
Oh, my goodness.
And he collects any kind. And I just simply collect the two John Deere and International. I may have a stray or two.
Okay. Well, Greg, now you were kind enough to bring in some samples, some of your favorites we can show people here. Why don't you tell us what we've got?
Okay, this box is John Deere fobs.
Okay. I'll zoom in here a little bit.
Okay. Let me start with this one. It'll explain it a little better.
Sure.
This one is on the leather strap.
Yep.
It's made of pearl, and the watch would go here and go in your pocket, and this would be the part hanging out. So, and I should have took the glass off of that for you.
Oh, that's all good.
Now here is an old strap.
Okay.
And the collectors don't use them because that's what happens. They get hold and they break.
Sure.
But this is the piece that was hanging outside of the pocket. And this is from John Deere's St. Louis branch. That's
How old are we? You think we're talking here, Greg?
we're talking about in the teens, I think. 20s. Moline Wagon Company. I believe John Deere bought that out at somewhere in the teens.
100 years old.
Yes. These are, I think, from the 20s.
Okay.
They're like the Waterloo Boy. That's going to date it. That was produced and given away prior to John Deere.
Okay. So why don't you just hold a couple up here and walk us through some of your favorites here, Greg?
This is one of my favorite. This was Waterloo Boy Tractor Company, which this would date this fob prior to John Deere buying them because my history's not all that great, but in the teens, 18, 19 or something, is when Waterloo Boy was purchased by Deere. And this is a fancy fob. Most of them are not this fancy because it wouldn't last. It's made of celluloid. Okay. And then somebody probably put this fancy fob. Okay. I'm going to say this was a businessman's.
Okay. What are some of your other favorites here, Greg?
I like this one. It's from the state of Montana, and it has a Waterloo Boy tractor on it.
Okay.
And these others were given away by John Deere or sanctioned and sold by John Deere to dealers. This one was simply for this one particular dealer. So I'm going to say this is a very, very rare piece.
Okay.
I like this one because it's rare. These others are tied down, but the color They made them in blue, light blue, red, white, and blue, and black. And for some reason, the black is extremely rare. And so it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, why don't you show us what the blue one here?
I can't get it's tied in.
Oh,
but
tied in. Okay.
there's the same thing in blue.
Okay. There you go, folks.
Light blue. And the red, white, and blue is by far the prettiest one.
Where do you find these things, Greg?
At
Is it on
auctions.
eBay or?
I've bought them on eBay. Toy shows.
Okay.
Collector's auction. Somebody else collects them and sells.
Now you actually, as a collector, you kind of started on the toy tractors. Is that how you started?
Yes, I started collecting toy tractors, and toy tractors take up a lot of room.
Yep.
And a friend of mine was collecting this stuff, and he and I would go to shows together and stuff. And I thought, well, that's kind of neat. That'll go good in my cabinet with my tractors.
Sure.
Well, it wasn't too long, and I was taking tractors out and putting this stuff in.
Okay.
And it's a lot of fun, and it's all old. I'm not buying anything that's new. It's all old stuff.
Right. And it's, I mean, if you don't mind sharing, like what are some of the most rare ones? What do they go for?
This is that's probably a $1,500 fob.
Wow.
This fob is $1,500 to $2,000, and this fob, just like it but a different color, is a $300 fob.
So the black.
The black makes it, and this one, if you can see, has got a lot of wear. This one is near perfect. But it's just the rarity of it. This is a very rare fob and in very good shape. It's from St. Louis, and it's above $1,000.
Wow.
But it's, and most of them I didn't give what they'll bring. You
And also the Deere family there with the.
Yes, Veely was John Deere's son married Mr. Veely's daughter, and Veely sold wagons and cars and later cars, and these are from that company, the Veely company.
Okay.
That's, if you look, that is a car wheel and tire, a wooden wheel.
Wow.
And John Deere helped market their products at times.
Right.
And they stayed, the farm part of it left pretty fast.
Okay.
But the construction equipment operators, they kept them because what they do in a wristwatch wasn't that good of a thing to have. So they kept the pocket watch longer.
Okay.
So basically, the latter ones that were made were all made for construction equipment.
Okay. But the old, just a piece of our American culture's past. The pocket watch is a piece of every family. Every guy had one.
I mean, if you think about it, it was something you didn't have. A cell phone you could look if your pocket watch ran down. All of a sudden you didn't know what time. So it was a part of your everyday.
Yeah.
I mean, it was important.
Right.
And
now, Greg, you also collect some memorabilia and advertising information.
Yes.
You brought some pretty unique items to show us here.
Here is a John Deere piece for the John Deere general purpose tractor. Or not general purpose, the D, I'm sorry. But if you look at the quality
oh my gosh,
of
it
the
looks
printing,
like it's brand new.
it's very, very nice.
And the color, my goodness.
I mean, there were 100 or better companies trying to sell you a tractor at this point. It wasn't down to 4 or 5 like today.
Right.
And so everything
look at that.
was fancy. They were really after you. And I don't think this brochure even calls this a D or GP tractor. It's just they just call it the John Deere tractor.
Just beautiful. What do we got here now?
This is a twine broom.
Twine broom?
Yes. Back when a binder, when people cut the wheat and bound it into shocks, all of the equipment companies sold twine, and so it was a big push to get it sold. And this is simply just a little broom made out of the twine, and it was probably given away. That's a ball of twine, but it was probably given away like at the state fair or something as a little giveaway. And it's all of these years, somebody valued it very much and didn't use it, left it in a drawer, and
wow,
it became collectible.
Very cool. Now this, I got to ask you about the Case Eagle there. We see the Eagle sold out there.
again, we were talking about how it was all about getting that sale across. That is a piece of literature.
It opens up.
Opens up. Old Abe was Case's logo.
Yep.
And it opens up. They call this die cut because it is cut out.
Oh, look at that.
And look at the old tractors.
Where did you find this item?
I believe I purchased this online at an auction.
Okay.
Maybe even eBay. I don't know.
Wow.
And that's telling you where maybe their branches are. And here's something a lot of people didn't know. Excuse me. Of course, they made steam engines.
Yep.
But the last thing in the book,
car. There
Case
you go.
made a car.
Actually, we saw Case car. We showed it on YouTube out in Nebraska a couple years ago. It brought an insane amount of money. But I didn't even know Case made cars.
I knew they made them, but I think I've only seen one in person at a show. I mean, that's a rare piece.
What a cool piece there. Now, this international piece, I'm really intrigued here.
This.
You were kind of saying maybe the Holy Grail right here?
That is the Holy Grail of International Harvester Collectibles.
What is it?
That is a cookie cutter. Or actually, it's probably a stamp.
Okay.
It came in a little can that you cut the cookie out, and then you stamped the International Harvester's logo into the cookie. So when the cookie baked, you had an International Harvester cookie.
And this was for the dealer day?
They called it the family party. And
Okay.
it was John Deere Day. It was International Harvester's version of the John Deere Day.
But they called it the family
The
party?
family party. And they had actors come in and speakers come in. And they
Really?
Yes. It was like the old-fashioned John Deere days. It was a big event.
And where did you find this?
I bought this at a great big show in Pennsylvania.
Okay. And I understand there's another collector, in the collecting community you guys get to know each other.
Yes.
But you've had a collector trying to buy this off you for some time?
He tried for years and years to buy it from me, and I didn't want to sell it.
Right.
And he just kept getting higher and higher until I became weak and sold it to him.
Okay.
And it was kind of funny because I sold it, and I mean, I was glad I did because I sold it for a lot of money.
Yeah.
But then he turned around a couple of years later and decided to sell off his collection, and he had an auction, and I sat online at home and bought it for less than half of what I gave for it to start.
It'd really be important who the auction company is, the collecting audience.
He hired, I'm sure, a good auctioneer,
right.
but he wasn't known for selling this stuff, so he didn't get. I wouldn't have known about it if the guy hadn't called me and told me.
Right.
But
So you bought your IH cookie cutter back.
at less than half of what I sold it for the first time.
Yeah, you understand how this buy-sell thing
I'm in
works.
it really good.
That's awesome. Well, and then we have a couple other items here.
This is an old dexterity puzzle, but it's back from the days of the binders.
A puzzle?
A puzzle. If you turn it over, and it's kind of hard to see because the glass has gotten cloudy, but that is a ball bearing. And we can't imagine of that being an advertising point. But you know, all of them had bushings back then, and they came with this ball bearing binder, and so they gave these away probably at the county fair.
Wow. Very cool.
Very old and very good condition.
That's there you go, folks.
It's kind of sad today. You can come in here and buy a tractor that costs $100,000 and you get a cap. You know, we don't.
Right.
And back then they gave all this wonderful stuff away.
And the interesting story on this other piece here, Greg, in terms of International Harvester. Let me just zero in on it here. So it's coal mines. What's this about?
International Harvester had a coal mine in eastern Kentucky in a town called Benham.
What do you mean they had a coal mine?
They were mining the coal, and you've all heard the old stories and songs about the company store. I sold my soul to the company store.
Right.
Well, they owned the whole camp. They owned all of the houses.
International Harvester.
International Harvester did. They owned the store that you bought your groceries, or you didn't have to, but most people did.
Benham, Kentucky.
Benham, Kentucky. They owned the high school. They owned the movie theater. They owned everything. And if you worked for them, you probably paid some kind of very small amount of rent. If your light bulb went out, you called. Somebody immediately came over and screwed a new light bulb in for you.
Wow.
And it worked really well for Harvester because they weren't members of the United Mine Workers Union. If the coal miners UMW went out
Right.
on strike, Harvester would just keep working their people, and
Oh,
whatever the other unions came down to, Harvester would go back and pay them, their employees, the same thing, so they never had to strike. Those people over there really, really liked the company. And somewhere in the 60s, they donated the community buildings to the city, and a city was formed.
Wow.
And they sold the people the houses, and I'm probably going to forget, but I think it was $100 a room.
wow.
So if you had a 6-room house, you got $600.
So we're talking deep International Harvester history here.
Yes.
Benham, Kentucky.
Yes.
And then the coal would go up to Chicago, you were saying?
They'd go to Chicago, where they, used it to fire the iron ore,
Right.
and make the iron,
Yep, you bet.
or melt the iron.
Wow.
And the last little bit of stuff
Okay.
is some John Deere pieces.
Okay.
This is from John Deere's 100th anniversary in 1937. Of course, John Deere was formed and founded in 1837.
Okay.
And this is just a little coin they gave away. Don't really know the purpose of it. I'm sure it was just a giveaway, but very old and rare piece.
Wow.
This
Now
is
we're at 180
yes.
years old. Wow. What? Okay. Next door.
This
we
is a
got-
cigarette lighter from the local John Deere dealer that was here.
MG Williams.
MG Williams. They were the John Deere dealer here in Hopkinsville, and they, I think, started in like 39.
Okay.
And Rader Brothers purchased that dealership from them in 1964,
Okay.
who later sold the dealership after 50 years to Hutson Incorporated in 19.
Love the
in
local
2004.
dealership name and picture on the. That's
Yeah.
local history.
And last but not least, this is a coin purse,
Okay.
and it is from John Deere Plow Company in Kansas City, Missouri, and it's advertising John Deere saddles.
John Deere saddles.
Yes.
Nice.
And the Kansas City branch is the only one that sold saddles, and they also sold collars and bridles and all that kind
Sure.
of stuff. And it apparently was a very short-lived thing. Maybe the branch manager wanted to do it, and the other higher-ups in John Deere didn't, and he tried. But a very rare piece. You just never see that piece. And
Well, Greg, first of all, just thank you for showing us your collection and telling us what drives you. I can tell you enjoy the heck out of
the
it.
history of it,
Yeah.
you can collect it and not study the history of it, but the history
Yeah.
of just, I like to know when MG Williams was in business, and
Right.
about the town of Benham. And I sell John Deere equipment. I used to sell the international equipment, so I like both of those companies. But if it's a neat piece, I don't care if it's Minneapolis Moline or Ford. It doesn't matter. I mean,
Wow.
it's just history. It's
Well,
history.
Greg, this has been fascinating. I'd never heard of the watch fobs, and so thank you for educating us and our viewers on this piece of American ag history and showing us your collection. It's just awesome.
Thank you. I was glad to do it. If you're a collector, you like to show it off some, so I was glad that you wanted to see it.
Oh, great fun. Thanks again, Greg.
Thank you.